go. So we're going to define a few words, and I tried. You guys know, in the last couple days, I tried not to define these two words, but until next unit. But we need to know them now. So we're going to define common difference and common ratio, because we're going to be using them when we are writing equations. And especially in the checkpoint, you're going to see the words common ratio and common difference. So you probably need to know what they mean, right? So we're going to define them with reference to a table. They don't mean anything different with reference to anything else, just worded it a little different. So next unit, when we're talking about sequences, it'll be worded just a little bit differently than it is now. But it's the same thing. So common difference is the constant number being added or subtracted. So it's either added or subtracted. So here's an example. If I have my table, and how do I get, and I'm looking at my y values, and this is my, I'm going to put this here, y values. So I'm looking at my y values, right? So what's being added or subtracted to get from one number on my y values to the next? Well, what do I do to get from 0 to 5, and 5 to 10, and 10 to 15, and 15 to 20? What am I doing every single time? You can type it in the chat box, whatever, but just go ahead and please, or say it out loud, just type in an answer. Mateo. Yes, Jonathan, good. So every time I'm adding 5, right? So this is plus 5, plus 5, plus 5, plus 5. So I'm adding 5 every time. That's my common difference. If I was going backwards, I would be subtracting 5 every time, right? If it was going 20, 15, 10, 5, I'd be going backwards, so I'd be subtracting 5 every time. Okay? So if it's getting bigger, I'm adding. If it's getting smaller, I'm subtracting. That's the difference. And common difference means I'm adding the same number. Is there any questions on the definition of common difference? Okay, so let's go to common ratio. And common ratio is the constant number being multiplied. So I'm multiplying the same number every time. And I'm going to look at I have two different examples here, because we have two different types that we want to talk about. With the common difference, we said that it's adding or subtracting. You notice that? It says adding or subtracting. Notice with common ratio, it's being multiplied by. There's no division. It's only being multiplied by. So we need to talk about what happens if I'm dividing by something. How do I change that divide into multiply? So when we get to the second example, we'll talk about that. But let's do the first one now. So how do I get from 1/4 to 1/2, 1/2 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 4, and 4 to 8? Well, going from 1/2, oh, boy, sorry guys, a lot of people are coming in now. Ketland and Alex. So if you know the answer, you can go ahead and put it into the chat box. Okay, so since I already know it's a common ratio, I don't have to decide. I know that I'm going to be multiplying by something. So I'm probably not going to look at the fractions first, because they're fractions, and I know how you guys feel about them. So I'm going to go over here where it's the whole numbers, and see if I can figure out what it is. Plus, I already know, I mean, I might as well talk about it. I know I'm not adding the same thing, because 1/4 plus 1/4 gives me 1/2. And 1/2 plus 1/2 gives me 1. And 1 plus 1 gives me 2. And 2 plus 2. So I'm not adding the same thing every time. So it's not a common difference, because I'm not adding the same thing. I'm adding different things every time. Good, Roberto. That is exactly right. So what I think is, if I'm not adding the same thing, what do I multiply 1 by to get 2? And what do I multiply 2 by to get 4? And what do I multiply 4 by to get 8? So that's what I'm going to kind of think about. Well, I'm multiplying by 2. And 2 times 1/2 actually is 2, right? Because all multiplication is repeated addition. If 1/2 plus 1/2 is 1, that's 1/2 times 2. And if 1/4 plus 1/4 is 1/2, guess what? That is also multiplied by 2. So my common ratio, and I am not spelling out, I'm just going to tell you guys this, I'm not going to spell out common ratio and common difference ever. I'm going to say CD, common difference, plus 5. Okay? CR, common ratio, 2. Okay, I am not going to, that's too many letters spelled, Mateo, don't laugh at me. I already can't spell good enough. Okay, so you guys don't have to spell it out either. You can do CD for common difference and CR for common ratio, just as long as you know what they mean. Okay, so now let's look at the second example, which is a little bit harder because what's happening this time? Instead of getting bigger, what's happening? I'm getting smaller. Okay. So, but it doesn't change what I'm doing. It just means I'm going to be multiplying by something. What do I do by 27 to get to 9? 9 to get to 3, 3 to get to 1, 1 to 1/3, 1/3 to 1/9. And that's my question. So normally we would say, what? What am I doing each time? Can someone type in what I'm doing every time? Or you guys can all type it in since, you know, you're supposed to be participating in this chat. So if I ask a question, you should be typing answers in. Yes, Roberto. Anybody else have an answer about what it's supposed to be, what I'm doing every time? So, my common ratio is not 3. I just want to say this because I'm not multiplying by 3 every time. I'm doing what Roberto said, I'm dividing by 3, but my definition of common ratio says it's the number being multiplied by. So I want to change that divide by 3. To what I'm multiplying by, because a common ratio is what I'm being multiplied by. So it needs to be a multiplication problem. So dividing by 3 is the same, and I want to say this. How can I put this to make it easier? Okay, so if I have, let's see if I can do it this way, if this makes sense. If I have 3x equals 1, I would divide by 3. Is that correct? Is everyone okay with that? Right? So, that would be the same as multiplying by 1/3, because 1/3, I'm trying to find out where to write this out. Sorry, you guys. So I have 3x equals 1. If I multiply by 1/3, and I multiply by 1/3, guess what I get? 3x divided by 3 equals 1/3. I get the same thing. So dividing by a number, which is dividing by 3, is the same as multiplying by its reciprocal. So if I'm dividing by 3, I'm going to be multiplying by 1/3. Is that okay? Does that make sense? I need you guys to make sure that makes sense. Because this is 1/3 is 1 divided by 3, right? So I'm dividing by 3. I'm taking that number, whatever it is, and dividing by 3. So my common ratio is not 3, it's 1/3. We're going to keep talking about this as we go by, and hopefully it'll make more sense as we do this. So what we're doing today is writing equations. We have to write equations if it's linear or if it's exponential. Okay, how do I know which one is which? Well, linear comes with the common difference. If I have a common difference, and yes, I know I said I wasn't going to spell it out, and I did. Difference. Quit laughing, Mateo. Common difference. Okay, and exponential comes with the common ratio. So if I have a common difference, it's a linear function. If I have a common ratio, it's an exponential function. Okay? So now I need to know what these, in terms of, my linear equation is going to be y equals mx plus b. So in terms of common difference and what I'm looking for, what are these terms? So my m is my common difference. Okay? So I find my common difference in my equation. Where the m is, I'm going to put what my common difference is. My b is my initial starting point, or initial value. Let's put value. Initial value, which could be called a starting point. Okay, and I also call it the 0th term. So there's several different things, different ways you're going to hear it, but it's all when x equals 0. So if my table doesn't tell me what it is, I have to figure it out. Okay, so I want to know what the b is in my linear equation is when x equals 0. What does y equal? That's my b. Y equals what? Okay. So if I'm looking at my exponential function, and I'll make this smaller so you guys can get all the Ciale and Ernesto, all the definitions in, and take a picture of them and stuff, or whatever you need to do. Ciale, Ernesto. So my exponential function here, this b, the b is my common ratio. So my common difference and my common ratio always goes with the variable. We need to remember that. Common ratio, common difference always goes with the variable. So in my linear function, it's m. In my exponential function, it's b. And a is my initial value. Starting point. And x equals 0. Okay, or 0th term. Whichever one it happens to be used. And all three of them are used from now until we start in Sec 2. Those are the terms that are going to be used, and it'll be one of the three. Initial value, starting point, 0th term. Those will be what you're asked to find, and that will be a in exponential. It'll be what I'm multiplying by, or what I'm adding or subtracting in the linear function. Okay? So, and I'm going to tell you the truth. This is what your checkpoint looks like. It has this exact same question.
I'm just waiting.
Has this exact same question. Oh, here. So sorry. Let me go back so you guys can get get a picture of all the definitions that you need and everything that we need to have there if you need it. So take a quick picture, write everything down, whatever you need to do to make sure you have everything on the top part of that page. Go on. So it says state the common difference or common factor of each, the starting point, and write the equation for the given function. So as you can see, these are the same tables from above. So we already know the common difference or common ratio. So for step 1, our common difference, it's a difference, is plus 5, right? Because we're adding 5 every time. We already figured that out. Okay? So now we need to find the starting point, or when x equals 0. So I'm going to just say my 0th term because that's easier to write out. I need to know where my 0th term is. So that means I need to go back a step. So I added 5 here, right? So basically for my 0th term, I need to know what number I add 5 to get 0. Can anyone tell me what my 0th term would be? If I went back from 0, where would I be at? And you can think of that too. Yeah, good, Alex. You can think of it as going backwards too, right? Please, you guys, write it. More than one person needs to put in the answer, especially since not only I'm the only one that can see it. I need to know that you guys are paying attention, right? To get that easy 100 points, you need to be participating and put your answers, right or wrong, into the chat box. Okay? So from 20, if I think about going backwards, I'm 20 to 15, I'm subtracting 5, subtracting 5, subtracting 5. So 0 subtract 5 would be, this one should be -5. So my 0th term is -5. Is there any questions so far? And because it's a common difference, I know that I'm going to use y equals mx plus b. Okay, I know that I'm going to use that because it's a common difference. And common difference right here, if you look up here, it's my linear one. Okay, common difference. It's linear. So wherever there's an m, I'm going to put my common difference. Wherever there's a b, I'm going to put my 0th term, and I'm done. That's it. So it's just going to be y equals 5x minus 5. Done. Once I find my 0th term and my common difference, the equation is finished. I just have to fill in. Okay. So let's do the next one. And I think we found the common ratio this time. Our common ratio was, Roberto, it was 2, right? Okay, 2. So, oh, yeah, it's right there, 2. So then I need to find my 0th term. So if I want to go back to 0, and I'm multiplying by 2, what number do I multiply by 2 to get 1/4? This one's a little harder because it's a fraction. So I think of it this way. It says, what number do I have to multiply by 2? That means, what number do I have to multiply by 2? What number am I multiplying by 2 to get an answer of 1/4? What number do I multiply by 2 to get 1/4? So then I divide. Or I can multiply by the reciprocal by 1/2. I think this will be easier because it's a fraction. Oh, not 1/4, 1/2. Because it's a fraction, it's easier to think about it this way. Let me write that out neater. Multiply by 1/2. So the x's go away, and I get 1/8. So my the 0th term is 1/8. Okay? And because it's a common ratio, we're going to use the formula y equals a times b to the x power. Okay, a is my 0th term, b is my common ratio. So I get y equals my 0th term, oops, nope, thank you. My 0, sorry, hit the wrong button. My 0th term is 1/8, 1/8 times 2 to the x power. And then the last one, we know my common ratio. Probably going to run out of room. My common ratio is 1/3, and I need to know my 0th term. So if I'm going back to 0, this time I'm multiplying by 1/3, right? So what number do I multiply by 1/3? So 1/3 times what number equals 27? Yes, that's what it is, 81. So to get rid of a fraction, I multiply by 3, multiply by the denominator, so multiply by 3. So x equals 81. So my zeroth term is 81. So I get y equals, I'm still using this equation, 81 times 1/3. And fractions go into a parenthesis. And I think just to be on the safe side, I would always just put the common ratio inside of parentheses into the x power. That way you're never wrong. You always just get it right. So 81 times 1/3 to the x power. Okay, so right now there's like 3 people typing, or 2 people typing in the chat box. That means 2 people are going to get credit for being here today. Do you guys not understand what I'm saying? You need to type answers into the chat box. Whether they're right or wrong, you need to put them in there. Okay. Easy 100 points, right, Mateo? Okay. Come on, you guys. Oops. So let's, and that way I kind of know if you, what term you need. And somebody in my last class said, what did they tell me? They said, well, people will quit showing up if you're getting them points for entering in the chat box. I'm like, the questions don't have to, answers don't have to be right. I just need to know that you're here and you're participating. Not that you came, you turned your camera on, and then you went and did your own, went about and did whatever it is that you do at home. Play video games, sleep. I know some people in here sleep because they told me that. There's someone in here right now that says he comes to class and then he sleeps. Okay? So, yeah. All right? So, I know that some people don't, they're in here. You're not getting credit for being in class unless I know that you're actually participating. And how do you do that? You answer questions in the chat box. Okay? Whether it's right or wrong. So what are we supposed to do for each one of these? Find the common difference or common factor or common ratio. So we're going to find the common difference or common factor. Common difference, common ratio first. Then the starting point, which is the 0th term. And then write an equation for each function. Okay? So now it's your turn to try this one. So my common, well, we don't know if it's common ratio or common difference. I'm just going to say we need to talk about how do we know? How do I know? Well, common difference means I'm adding the same thing every time. So here, if I'm looking here, that would mean I would add 6. Well, am I adding 6 here? And am I adding 6 here? Well, I'm definitely not adding 6 here. And I'm not adding 6 here. So it's not a common difference. Okay? So if it's not a common difference, then I'm going to look and see if I'm multiplying by the same thing. Well, what do I multiply 2 by to get 8? Well, 4. So then I want to say, what's 1/2? There's room over here. Where can we do this? 1/2 times 4 is what? Well, 1/2 of 4 is 2, so that's correct. So I'm timesing by 4 here. And then 1/8 times 4 is 4 over 8, or 1/2. So that is correct also, times 4. So my common ratio is 4. And my 0th term, this is nice because look, they tell me what my 0th term is. If you're in a table and you look down your x's and you see a 0, that's your 0. Oh, I don't know why. If you see a 0, that's your 0th term. So I didn't have to figure that one out. So my 0th term is 1. Sorry, you guys. Is 1/2. And on my equation, I know because it's a common ratio, is going to be y equals a times b to the x power. That was what our definition was that it gave us over there. And so this is going to be y equals 1/2 times 4 to the x power. If you don't know how to put the to the x power, so if I was typing it in, just so you guys know, so it goes to everyone, you know how to type it into the chat box, I would just put, let's see, y equals 1/2 times 4 to the x power, like that. Okay, so 1/2 times 4 to the x power, and that's how it would be typed into the chat box. Okay, is there any questions? Okay, so let's try the next one then. I probably started my timer. Oh, I didn't. That's good. Okay, so how do I get from one point to the next point, right? They said we add 3. Beautiful. Well, my 0th term should be the one right before the 1, right? Are we okay with that? Does that make sense? Okay, so how do I get, what do I add, what number do I add 3 to get 9? That's my question. If I'm going to add 3 here. So what number am I adding 3 to? That's how you find out, Maria. Does that make sense now? So what number am I adding 3 to get 9? In this case, this number would be 6, right? So my common difference is 3. My 0th term is 6. And remember, the equation for this is y equals mx plus b, where this is my common difference. That is so not a D. Wow. Okay, let me try that again. Common difference. And this is my 0th term. Okay? All right, so then that means my equation is going to be y equals 3x plus 6. Done. That's it. Y equals 3x plus 6. Okay? So once I find my common difference in my 0th term, I just put it in. If it's a common difference, I put it into this formula. If it's a common ratio, I put it into this one. So this one's ratio, this one's different, right? This is my common ratio, and this is my 0th term. So if I have a common difference, I use this one. If I have a common ratio, I use this one. See the difference between that, you guys? Okay, we have 2 more problems. Let's try those ones. Oh, sorry. Can't slide up here. So let's start with that one. Okay, so how do I know if I'm adding or subtracting? How do I know if I have a common difference or a common ratio, right? So what am I doing to get from one term to the next term, right? That's what I'm always asking myself. What am I doing? So am I adding the same thing? Well, if I start at 5, what would I add to 5 to get 10? Well, 5. And so is 10 plus 5, 20? No. So I'm not adding the same thing every time. Okay, so then our next one would be, so we know it's not a common difference because we're not adding the same thing every time. So I'm going to see if it's a common ratio. Common ratio means I'm multiplying the same thing every time. So what do I multiply 5 by to get 10? Well, I multiply by 2. What's 10 times 2? 20. So I multiplied by 2. What's 20 times 2? 40. So I multiplied by 2. So it is a common ratio, and my common ratio is 2. So, okay, good. Okay, good. I didn't know how to say that. So yeah, so if I'm getting bigger, I'm multiplying. It's if I'm getting smaller. So if I start with a high number and get to smaller numbers, that's when I'm multiplying by a fraction. Okay? And then my zeroth term, oh my goodness. Oh, my zeroth term. Oh, so I did g of x. We do need to talk about this problem. So this one is for g of x, by the way. And my zeroth term is right here. Notice I have two. I have I need to highlight this. Notice I have f of x and I have g of x. I have two separate equations here. Do two different tables for two different problems. So I actually have to do both of those. Okay, so I'm doing the second table first, obviously g of x, because that's the one I started with. And my zeroth term is 5. Okay, and if I have a common ratio, what equation do I use? I use y equals a times b to the x power. Because it's exponential, not linear. So that means my equation would be y equals 5 times 2 to the x power. And now, so that was, I'm going to highlight this one in green. That was this one, which is g of x. And now I have to do f of x. Two totally different equations, two totally different ones. So what's happening every time here? How am I getting from one to the other? Well, I'm adding 2. So this means I do have a common difference, which is plus 2, okay? And I don't have a common ratio on this, on f of x. So this is f of x. And my zeroth term on this one is 100. So my equation for this would be y equals mx plus b, because I have a common difference. So remember, I have two different equations because I have a common difference and a common ratio. I have to remember which one I'm using. So this one would be y equals 2x plus 100. Okay, so this last one only has one y. That's it. It's a little harder because it has a fraction involved. But I'm going to see if you guys can do it. So go. Sorry, we should have started the recording. So let's start with the easy one, the zeroth term, because, yes, Maria, we're going to talk in just a second, okay? My zeroth term is 1 1/3. So my main question, before I find out anything else, is how do I know which equation, right? I have two equations, mx plus b, and y equals a times b to the x power, right? I have two different equations. How do I know which one I'm using? That's my question to you guys. How do I know which one I'm going to use? Does anybody know? I know one person who knows. This is how I know. Okay, yeah, I understand that, what you just put in there. This is how I know. If I'm going to look for this. I want to look for my common difference or my common ratio. That's how I'm going to know which equation to use. That's going to tell me which equation to use, okay? Oops, wrong button. Okay? If I have a common difference, if I find a common difference, I use this one. If I find a common ratio, I use this one. Okay, so if I find a common difference, I'm going to use y equals mx plus b. If I find a common ratio, I'm using a times b to the x power. That's how I know which one I'm using. So do I have a common difference or do I have a common ratio? That's what I've got to ask myself. And then my common difference goes where the m is, and my common ratio in this one goes where the b is. Okay? Common difference, common ratio. So, I'm going to look at my equation, look at my fractions. I know these are fractions, man. But if I look at each one, how are they changing? What's changing? That's what a common difference is, right? If it's what's changing in the from y to y, what's changing from each time. So I have 1/3, 1 1/3, 2 1/3, 3 1/3. So the 1/3 is not changing. What's happening every time is I am adding 1. The 1/3 didn't change. All that changed was the whole number. I had 1/3, then I had 1 1/3, and 2 1/3, and 3 1/3. So all I did was add 1. So my common difference, because I'm adding, I have a common difference. If I'm multiplying, I have a common ratio. Common difference means adding / subtracting same number. Right? Common ratio means multiplying by same number. Sorry, I read my words together. Multiplying by the same number, okay? So this time I was adding, so I'm going to use this equation, y equals mx plus b. So this should be y equals 1x plus, my 0th term is 1 1/3. Okay? So, I'm going to stop.